Imagine a weapon so utterly terrifying, so irrevocably committed to destruction, that its very presence shattered the morale of the most powerful navy in the world. This was no new bomb, no super battleship, but a human being transformed into a living missile. By the end of this journey, you will confront the ultimate act of national desperation, understand the profound cultural forces that compelled these young men, and witness the catastrophic impact of Japan's final, most horrifying gamble, the Kamikaze. From the ashes of a collapsing empire emerged the divine wind, the Kamikaze. But what truly drove these pilots to embrace certain death, sacrificing everything in a relentless, brutal campaign? And how did their suicidal charges forever alter the grim calculus of war? Join us as we delve into Japan's final, desperate flight. The Pacific War, by late 1944, had become a nightmare for Imperial Japan. The relentless Allied advance had systematically stripped away their conquests, leaving their once mighty navy battered, their airfields bombed into craters, and their supply lines strangled. Japan's best pilots, seasoned and lethal, had been decimated in earlier, crushing defeats, like the Battle of the Philippine Sea. The once formidable Zero fighter, a symbol of Japanese air power, was now technologically outmatched, its pilots increasingly green, barely trained for conventional combat. The strategic landscape was utterly catastrophic, with Allied forces encroaching ever closer to the Japanese home islands. In this crucible of impending defeat, a radical, unthinkable solution began to crystallize within the desperate high command: organized suicide attacks. The concept itself wasn't entirely alien. The ancient warrior code of Bushido, the way of the warrior, was deeply ingrained in Japanese military culture. It emphasized loyalty, honor, and courage, with death in battle often seen as a glorious fulfillment of duty, a concept far removed from the Western idea of surrender or capture. Indeed, during a B-29 raid in August 1944, some Japanese pilots had already deliberately crashed into American bombers, a precursor to the systematic terror to come. The very name, Kamikaze, meaning divine wind or spirit wind, harked back to the 13th century, when two miraculous typhoons famously saved Japan from invading Mongol fleets under Kublai Khan. It was a powerful, symbolic appeal to a divine intervention that many hoped would again sweep the enemy from the seas. The official inception of the Kamikaze Special Attack Force, or Shinpu Tokubetsu Kogekitai, is often attributed to Vice-Admiral Takejiro Onishi. Onishi, a blunt and outspoken advocate for naval air power, took command of the 1st Air Fleet in the Philippines in October 1944. Facing an impossible situation, only about 50 operational aircraft remaining under his command, and orders to destroy the U.S. Navy's carrier fleet, he reluctantly concluded that only a suicide strategy could inflict the necessary damage to stem the Allied tide. Though he had initially considered the idea heresy, the dire circumstances forced his hand. On October 25th, during the monumental Battle of Leyte Gulf, the Kamikaze became a terrifying, brutal reality. As the vast American fleet pressed its advantage, 5 A-6M Zero fighters, led by Lieutenant Yukio Seki, launched their unprecedented mission. Their targets, the unsuspecting escort carriers of Task Unit 77.43, codenamed Taffy 3. The pilots had shared ceremonial cups of sake, their final earthly gesture, before climbing into their cockpits. The attacks were sudden, horrifying, and devastating. 1-0, likely piloted by Seki, screamed down towards the USS St. Lo. Anti-aircraft fire erupted in a desperate, deadly curtain, but the pilot's unwavering resolve was absolute. The plane, laden with bombs, slammed into the St. Lo's flight deck, piercing through to the hangar bay where aircraft were being refueled and rearmed. A cataclysmic chain reaction followed. Gasoline ignited, bombs detonated, and secondary explosions ripped through the ship. Engulfed in a furious, unstoppable inferno, the USS St. Lo became the first major warship in history to be sunk by a kamikaze attack, disappearing beneath the waves in a mere 30 minutes. This wasn't merely a tactical strike. It was a psychological weapon unleashed, a concept of warfare the Allies had never before encountered. The psychological impact was profound. Allied sailors, accustomed to an enemy who sought to return home, now faced pilots who were already dead, utterly committed to their suicidal dive. Admiral William Bull Halsey himself later declared, "Kamikazes, the only weapon I feared in war." The fear was palpable, a chilling dread that settled over the fleet with every incoming radar blip. The true human element of the kamikaze transcends mere statistics. These were not fanatics in the simplistic sense often portrayed, but young men, many barely out of their teens, often students, imbued with intense nationalism and loyalty to their country and emperor. Their last letters, poignant and often heartbreaking, reveal complex emotions: love for family, gratitude, a sense of duty, and sometimes profound sorrow at their own impending deaths. Second Lieutenant Masashi Ohira, before his final flight off Okinawa, wrote to his wife, "Fukoko, for a long time you did your very best as a person who wanted to care for me. To me, you were a wife who was superior. You were a wife who was too good for me. At the end, I am thankful. I did not know a woman except for you." Another pilot, Toshio Kuramoto, expressed, "Kimiko, please forgive me for the time of departure. Only because I loved you, my heart was filled with the desire to not cause you sadness for a while. I absolutely was not lying. Please be cheerful and fight off all of the pain and sadness. I earnestly desire that you live with a strong heart." These were not unfeeling automatons, but men grappling with an unimaginable fate, often choosing to conceal their missions from loved ones to spare them pain. The indoctrination was relentless. The Bushido code instilled that one's life was secondary to honor, loyalty, and justice. Death was lighter than a feather when offered in loyalty to the emperor, the embodiment of Japan's spirit. They were taught that their sacrifice would ensure Japan's ultimate victory. Many volunteered, driven by pride and a profound sense of national emergency. Yet, some accounts suggest a grim reality behind the heroic facade. Pilots who returned without finding a target could face severe corporal punishment or even execution. The youngest kamikaze pilot was Yasuo Tanaka, a mere 16 years old, who flew an Oka, essentially a piloted winged bomb, to his death. Strategically and tactically, the kamikaze attacks were designed to compensate for Japan's overwhelming disadvantage in conventional air power, experienced pilots, and modern aircraft. An Allied Naval Operations Research Group estimated that kamikaze attacks were 7 to 10 times more effective than conventional airstrikes in terms of hits and damage during the initial months. A direct hit from an explosive-laden aircraft could cause catastrophic damage, even if the plane was heavily crippled by anti-aircraft fire. The Allies, initially caught off guard, were forced to adopt their defensive tactics with brutal urgency. They implemented a layered defense system: outer perimeter, extended combat air patrols, often 50 miles from the main fleet, to intercept incoming aircraft far from their targets. Radar picket ships, destroyers and smaller vessels positioned 15 to 20 miles out, acting as early warning systems, forming a perilous picket line that became prime targets. Inner screens, anti-aircraft fire from escorting warships, forming a tighter defensive circle. Ships' own defenses, every vessel's individual anti-aircraft battery, a last desperate chance. Technological advancements also played a crucial role. New anti-aircraft ordnance, particularly the introduction of proximity fuses, dramatically increased the effectiveness of Allied defenses. These fuses allowed shells to detonate near the target even without a direct hit, creating a lethal shrapnel cloud. Additionally, Allied forces conducted relentless fighter sweeps over Japanese airfields, aiming to destroy kamikaze aircraft on the ground before they could even take off. The climax of the Kamikaze campaign unfolded during the horrific Battle of Okinawa from April to June 1945. As Allied forces prepared for the monumental amphibious assault on Okinawa, located just 350 miles from Kyushu, Japan unleashed its most savage divine wind operations, collectively known as kikusu, or floating chrysanthemums. Waves of hundreds of kamikaze aircraft, alongside other special attack units like Oka piloted missiles and Kaiten human torpedoes, were thrown into the fray. The sheer scale of these attacks was unprecedented. On April 6, 1945 alone, in Kikusu No. 1, 355 kamikaze aircraft and 344 escort fighters launched an onslaught that lasted 5 agonizing hours. The radar picket destroyers bore the brunt of these brutal, relentless assaults. Stories of unimaginable heroism and harrowing survival emerged from the Inferno. The destroyer USS Laffey earned the legendary moniker, the ship that would not die, after enduring 6 kamikaze hits and 4 bomb hits, yet somehow remaining afloat. The destroyer USS Luce was ripped apart like a sardine can and sunk, losing 149 men, with survivors facing the additional nightmare of sharks in the water. The Battle of Okinawa became a meat grinder for the U.S. Navy. Kamikaze attacks sank or put out of action at least 30 U.S. warships and 3 merchant ships. Over 1,400 kamikaze missions were launched, sinking 26 enemy ships during Operation Tengo alone. Of the 34 ships sunk in the battle, a staggering 26 were the result of suicide attacks. Casualties were catastrophic. 4,907 U.S. Navy personnel were killed, outstripping the battle deaths of both the U.S. Army and Marines combined during the Okinawa campaign. British carriers with their armored flight decks generally fared better than their American counterparts, whose wooden decks were more vulnerable to the impact and subsequent fires. Despite the horrifying losses, the Kamikaze campaign ultimately failed to achieve its strategic objectives. While causing immense damage and psychological trauma, it could not derail Allied naval operations. The Japanese had gravely overestimated the psychological effect their attacks would have on the Allied will to fight. The Allies, though shaken, adapted and pressed forward with an unstoppable industrial might that could replace damaged ships and aircraft. The aftermath of the Kamikaze campaign is deeply complex. Over 3,800 kamikaze pilots perished, taking with them the lives of more than 7,000 Allied naval personnel and sinking dozens of warships. The human cost was appalling, a testament to the ultimate desperation of a nation pushed to the brink. When Japan finally surrendered in August 1945, Vice-Admiral Takejiro Onishi, often called the father of the kamikaze, committed ritual suicide, leaving a note expressing deep appreciation to the souls of the brave special attackers, wishing for his death to be a penance. He lingered for 18 hours after disemboweling himself, refusing medical aid. the legacy of the kamikaze remains a subject of profound discussion. In Japan, they are often remembered as tragic heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice for their homeland. For the Allies, they represented a brutal, almost incomprehensible fanaticism. Modern historical analysis strives to understand the immense pressure, cultural forces, and genuine patriotism that drove these young men to their horrifying fates, rather than simply labeling them as mindless zealots. Their actions became a chilling, powerful symbol of the extreme lengths to which a nation would go to defend itself in the face of annihilation. This chapter of history offers us a stark reminder of the devastating human cost of total war, the power of indoctrination, and the profound, often tragic, complexities of duty and sacrifice. What does this desperate chapter in World War II history reveal to you about the true nature of conflict and the indomitable, yet sometimes terrifying, spirit of humanity? Share your thoughts in the comments below and consider subscribing for more journeys into the depths of military history. The kamikaze were a terrible, spectacular, and ultimately futile expression of a nation's final, desperate breath. They were a divine wind that swept through the Pacific, leaving behind a trail of fire, shattered ships, and an eternal, haunting question about the true price of unwavering devotion.